Today is part 2 of Dr. Gordon discussing highlights from his Energy Medicine Conference. After the presentation, Dr. Gordon will also be taking questions. Please be sure to type your question into the questions box. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Gary Gordon.
Welcome back, everyone. Wow, there's been a lot of events since last week's webinar, and we must discuss them. It seems as though those of you who've been listening to my Fight for Your Health program will have a leg up in what is now starting to happen worldwide. Everyone knows by now that we have had a major event in Japan. And when we try to put it in some perspective, which is difficult to do because we know that there are always vested interests that wish to either over-magnify how dangerous the events are or minimize them depending on political point of view. So my take, I covered in a 1-hour audio presentation on a radio station for Dr. Robin Falkov yesterday, and that presentation will go up in the next day or two on my website. But I tried to put things in the following light, that if we understand that there have been lots of precedents, the 3 Mile Island, that leak actually, we believe, led to no actual deaths. But the Chernobyl reactor, on the other hand, they did later say that there was about 4,000 deaths, but it appears to some experts that there was quite an increase in the amount of thyroid cancers associated with the Chernobyl disaster. Now everybody is really interested in how the winds will affect what happens to us here in America. And it seems that basically at this time the jet stream is already carrying contaminated material over Hawaii, and it will hit the west coast on March 18th. But when it hits here, it should only be about 1/1000th of the dose in Japan. But everyone is already aware that we want to protect our thyroid gland, and it's so vulnerable that we have everybody busily buying all of the Lugols and other iodine pills available. So when you can't get those, you have to think what would be a backup, and that would be kelp tablets. Kelp liquid, anything, seems to have some benefits. And just to remind everyone, the FIGHT program that I have been teaching about for some time, my FIGHT program, has already explained on page 14 that we all need thyroid every day of our lives. And I've discussed dose, starting out with higher dose, going to lower. And anyone can go to my website, gordonresearch.com, and click on Scott Forsgren's great newspaper article regarding 18-page review of my FIGHT program that was published in the Lyme magazine for Lyme patients, but is applicable to every person wanting to learn advanced detoxification steps so that you can have infinite health and wellness in spite of the challenges that we all now face. And the challenges are so complex. Let's look at the picture in front of us for a moment. We have a picture of something coming from Japan to West Coast. Well, if I gave you the picture from the New York Times front page 2 years ago, it would show you that we've all been getting particulates from the burning of coal in China, and these have been proven to be poisoning the birds at 10,000-foot elevation and to giving at least 1/3 of the mercury in the average person living in San Francisco comes from breathing the air, which these air currents are carrying in particulate matters to everybody. So how much greater risk do we all face today than we faced a week ago? As I said, there will be all kinds of hysteria and people who will excessively put down the danger. And I'll try to take a middle ground. Since I was in radiology, I have had more than casual interest in how much radiation I was receiving when I would do an upper GI or a barium enema or X-ray people standing in the room. And I look at this as being one clear-cut additional risk. But let's get it clear. Some people thought that we only had 4,000 deaths from Sherbinel, and just because you have increased risk of thyroid carcinoma doesn't mean people die of that. So if we try to equate the real risk is that everyone on the planet is already being polluted and slowly getting less and less healthy as a direct result of the lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic that comes from the burning of coal for electric power for China. So the picture that I want everyone to put in your mind is, yes, we may run out of iodine pills and we may run out of kelp, in which case there's always, fortunately, something called homeopathy. And there are big companies like Boron, Standard Homeopathic, and Hahnemann, and these all carry something called Kali, K-A-L-I-I-O datum, and that would be 6C and 30C, and either 6C or 30C. I'll be happy to get either one or both. But the point that I'm making is that I try to put this more in the light of telling you that I look at this as a wake-up, because I do not feel that we'll be dropping dead in the streets as a result of this disaster. But if we use it as a wake-up call, it may cause you to actually read page 14 of the Forsgren report, which is the review of my 8 hours of webinar on my FIGHT program on my GordonResearch.com. Now, nobody's got hour after hour, so most of you certainly can't spend an hour learning about what food supplements we need, but it's critical. We all have to know. And so the reason I call it FIGHT program is because we need to know which foods are we sensitive to, and we need to know the I stands for infection. So if we look at it, I think most of us are concerned about the increase of cancer that we're going to get, but they say already that we got 27,000 too much cancer because the doctors are sending us all for CAT scans at the slightest hint that there's something wrong with our health. And so we're all getting radiated. So if we put this in the proper context, I think that the threats we've all been facing every single day to our health, which is why we have the epidemic of autoimmune disease and cancer and heart disease. And at the same time, let's remember that I've been lucky enough to find a world without cancer. That's the name on my website of the report by Dr. Kobayashi, who lives and works in Tokyo. And we did prove that in a 10-year study that we had 10,000 patients who followed a health-promoting program, which my FIGHT program is merely the advanced version of the early Dr. Kobayashi program. That's Kobayashi. And if you choose to search that name on my website, you will know why I'm very sanguine. I'm very relaxed about this new threat to our health, because it is only increased the risk that we already have by at most 1%, because we already are born toxic with lead poisoning. We're already living on devitalized foods that have been genetically modified. So I have no problem understanding that, yes, this is something that the only positive thing I see from all the media hype about this problem is that it will wake up people and they'll start to realize how precarious our lives really are, and why simple Mormon concepts of being prepared for a year or two of having food may make sense for people who are not of that particular religious persuasion. And if we start to realize then that I am really hoping to get this in a picture that we realize that potassium iodide is great, and certainly I have stated on page 14 of my report that long before this disaster occurred, I wanted everybody getting 1 to 5 drops of Lugol solution for a period of months and then 1 drop daily for the rest of your life, essentially, of Lugol's 5%, which gives you 6.417 milligrams of elemental iodine. Remember, that's milligrams, and the average Japanese gets 12.5 milligrams in their diet. And some people will be very wise to take 50 milligrams. And now remember, there's only 6.417 milligrams in a single drop of taking the 5% Lugols. So I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable, not getting the idea that drinking the whole bottle is going to solve anything. It's what we take in daily to help saturate the binding sites. It's not that you can cure yourself by taking huge doses, but I repeat, I do go to a higher dose for the first 1 or 2 months, and that was my position, merely to fill up the iodine tank on all of us, because we already have bromine and fluoride coming into our water, food, and air, which is in a sense depleting our iodine sources, so that we all have to set the stage for chronic thyroid insufficiency. And technically, in case you didn't notice in my report, I'm recommending that whenever you can get a doctor that will give you a prescription for thyroid, you're lucky, because even if the tests do not show the need, nonetheless, if you read the book Type 2 Hypothyroidism by Mark Starr, you'll understand that most of us would live longer and be healthier if you had thyroid, even if your tests were normal, because normal tests don't mean much because the tests are too insensitive. So with all that said, yes, the disaster in Japan should wake us up to how precarious our lives are. I will go through some rather frightening concepts in today's presentation that Dr. Bondley brought to my attention at our energy conference. Fortunately, we had this energy conference just before the disaster hit. And so the lectures, which we will be uploading to YouTube and making a link available to all of you who could not be at my energy conference, so that you really understand how sleeping on a magnetical sleep pad, giving you 10 or even 20 Gauss protection all the hours you're asleep, would significantly offer protection against the radiation that we're all going to start to get next year. Like it or not, we are losing the protection from the gamma radiation from sunspots. And we do know that sunspots have become so powerful because of our loss of our ozone layer, that they knocked out all of the power in China on Valentine's Day for almost an entire day. So that's before things get really worse, because they're predicting sunspot activity will become significantly higher than it is today. And meanwhile, it is not our use of automobiles, it is the depletion of the Earth's electromagnetic field. And that's why I put on the energy conference, because I still feel better and better every day. I'm getting brand new stem cells. My body at age 76 is getting younger by the day, and that's because I've been lucky enough to know the nutrition and follow my fight program, so I've already been on the right wavelength. But by adding energy to the equation, really powerful things have been happening to make me healthier, and they can help everyone, and people can lease a $20,000 magnetic device for as little as $500 or $600 a month and share it with, say, 2 or 3 other families, and that way each family is paying a third of, say, $600 or $200 per family, and each gets it for 1/3 of the month, 10 days out of the month, and then it goes to another family. So everybody can get to feel as good as I do. But the problem is, whether or not we get a huge new influx of toxic material coming from Japan, we already have suffered the problem from the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. And we do know that a lot of it is free radical mediated, so we have to be on my power drink and we need to be on my BCI, and it will help a great deal if at the same time we can do the sweating and get in a far infrared sauna, simplify our diet, lower the stress, and be avoiding any additional chemical exposures and lowering stress. That's kind of the Kobayashi program on my website that he calls World Without Cancer, for good reason, because in 10 years, 10,000 patients using an annual blood test that tells you how much cancer was in your body kept people on their toes, so that those who started to slack off and went back to smoking, or starting to get too much sugar in their diet, or gave up their exercise, or didn't get the additional sleep we recommend in fighting back, those people who were not doing well and their body revealed they were doing poorly because the cancer test that we were doing on them, Dr. Kobayashi's panel, $500 test, warned us that they were not doing well. So the air we breathe, we know, is now going to have a whole new toxin, whatever you thought you were getting before. And remember, 30% of the mercury in the average San Francisco resident is coming from the particulates from Japan. But the oceans are where the particulates get rained down, and that's why the fish are alive with lots and lots of mercury that we get when we eat. So we're getting the mercury from our dentist for the fillings that they call silver, which are clearly nothing but mercury, primarily. In addition to that, the vaccine. So we have a problem. We know about the pollutants in the sound, and we know that our supermarket is really poisoning us. So if you are motivated now, get the video, Food Inc. You can get that online and watch it, because it's really worthwhile. And understand that the real risks that are going on every day in your health, not the ones that we're having trouble really being exact about how much risk we have as a result of the disaster in Japan, but we know that there is a risk with the genetically modified. And this film by CNN on my website, you go there to my website, Gordon Research, and you watch CNN Toxic America, and you can watch, and you'll understand why I'm so excited that we know that no matter what's happening with the disaster in Japan, if you choose to follow the FIGHT program, which is an advanced form of the Kobayashi program that's already proven itself in Japan in a 10-year study, taking people, many of whom had lots of cancer in their families, but staying on the program and getting an annual cancer screening test, which I advocate for everybody, because if we don't do the test, most of us assume that the guy next to us is going to get cancer and that we are somehow magically protected. So doing a blood test is very useful. But this video, CNN/Toxic America, is on my website, and you go to Google and you put in the word 10 Americans, and you will find the truth is that these are adverse toxins in everybody. But what I'm bringing to your attention is the fact that it takes a magnetic field to give your cells the ability to take up the extra vitamin C and the beyond chelation and the beyond fiber and the green and the maca that I use as part of my power drink. So in order to get the cell to pump toxins out, which we all are very, very toxic, mercury is in every cell. If we're going to get the cell to feel good enough, you need the energy, and the energy of a cell is measured, called ATP, and the ATP levels are now shown to be restored to healthy levels in cells when you bring back the magnetic field that we had just a mere 250,000 years ago, when dinosaurs were the rage on the earth because they had 20 to 30 Gauss. And that really maintains high level of big words I could give you, like bioporation, which means the ability of a cell to take up a nutrient and expel a toxin, and that's tied to transmembrane potential, and that is all tied to how much oxygen the cell gets, and the oxygen that is in your blood is not released effectively when your body is too acid, but when you get a pulsed electromagnetic field and or sleep on the Dr. Bonnelly Magnetico sleep pad, you are having far higher levels of oxygen in cells, because when your cell is more alkaline, oxygen is released from the red blood cell, and that goes back to why we get cancer. Now, there's lots of exciting research going on today, and we know that we can cut down cancer on anybody with the nutrients that I discuss in great detail on my website. And among these is the need for things like curcumin and vitamin C and selenium and zinc and magnesium. So we do know that we have to start to plan that if Toyota had to stop production of cars in Japan because of the disruption of the supply chain, maybe many of us need to plan ahead and have a couple months' supply of the nutrients that you believe in, as well as food and water, because things can disrupt our supply, just as has happened in Japan. It would be foolish to think that's the only problem that's going to happen, because we do know that the Earth's magnetic field is changing because you're in the middle of Earth changes. And let's make it clear to you. The electromagnetic field of the Earth is down to about 2% of what it was at the time of the dinosaurs, which puts it down to about 0.3, 0.4 Gauss when you used to have 30 Gauss. So I want it to be very clear to you that we can rebuild that energy level inside of the cells if I expose your body to healthy levels of magnetism, either by sleeping on a pad as I do each night. It's between my top and bottom mattress, weighing 100 pounds. Each pad is giving me 10 Gauss, and because I want 20 Gauss, I have two separate 100-pound pads between my top and bottom mattress to give me the energy I need to recharge my cells after I've been traveling around the Earth lecturing and doing what I do. So if we look at Earth changes, according to a NASA map, they say the collapse of the Earth's magnetic field, which is guarding the planet. Let's make this clear. If we don't have the magnetic field around the Earth, we will be swamped by real gamma radiation, not just the ultraviolet, and the sun will be cooking us. And that can be starting next year, because we are in the middle of losing the shield, which protects us, and sunspot activity is predicted to significantly increase over the next year. So with the magnetic field declining so rapidly that we're down to 0.5 or less, depending on where you measure, and some thought it was 5 Gauss. So whether you say it's 90% or 100%, all I can tell you is that none of us have the energy we could or should have and need if we choose to be on Earth at a time of major change. This slide explains to you that the weakening of the geomagnetic field has caused your immune system to be way down, and you are not protecting yourself against Lyme and valley fever and MRSA, and we have increasing levels of mycoplasma. Every known infection is going up because our bodies don't have the energy to fight back. So at the conference that I just put on, I had fortunately the ability to record most of these lectures, and we had an incredible presentation by Dr. Dean Bonley, but it got a little frightening when he talked about the fact that it appears that starting this fall, the things could heat up considerably for the whole planet as sunspot activity starts to really become much stronger than it is today, and by the fall we'll have even less of the Earth's ozone layer, which is what it takes to protect us. And the ozone layer, it now develops, is totally dependent on the magnetic field to keep the ozone layer intact. So where the magnetic field is declined the most is where the ozone layer is the thinnest, and that's why seals in Antarctic are now getting sunburned for the first time. So the conference had Dr. Bonley and Dr. William Pollack, and he's been associated in the past with Johns Hopkins, and he's been doing extensive research about all forms of magnetic healing. And he's actually involved in an institutional review board to help do magnetic research on the various approaches, like the magneticosleep.com pad. And We had a very powerful talk by Jim McBride, who is actually the master distributor in the United States for the really exciting PEMF 100, the pulsed electromagnetic field device that I was lucky enough to find, that I treat myself with about 12 minutes twice a day, although it is documented that even one 12-minute treatment every 3 to 4 days is enough to significantly help people recover from Parkinson's and Guillain-Barré and get out of wheelchairs with total paralysis and recover from shoulder pain, hip pain, knee pain, low back pain, and even do far better in responding to any other therapy for their cancer. And then Dr. Terry Williams, a brilliant chiropractor who's working with Olympic quality athletes, is getting a PhD in the field of this energy magnetic applications, and he gave an extremely exciting talk where an ADD child in a couple of treatments was able to, for the first time in his life, stop the wild overstimulation of his brain, actually take a nap, and was able, as long as he could get a daily treatment on the PEMF, that's the pulsed electromagnetic field, in that device. You can go to PEMF.us/info and see pictures of an autistic child that in 6 weeks was totally restored to full functioning, having at age 18 never completed a sentence until he started getting PEMF treatment. So life-changing things are happening. And Greg Westfall gave a powerful talk about what we can do with people's painful hips, knees, legs, feet with gangrene. This was a really historic conference. And as I repeat, more and more of the audio/video presentations that were captured will be put up and become available. So Dr. Bondley was ahead of the curve on this. 15 years ago, I purchased his pad to sleep between my top and bottom mattress, and I immediately saw that I was much healthier when I'm able to be home. 400 pounds is hard to carry with me when I'm on the road, which is another reason I'm excited about PEMF, because you can do PEMF anywhere, and it's pulsing, whereas the other is direct. And there's a need technically for both of these if we're going to fight back against the earth changes. But this really bright inventor, consultant, and lecturer on biomagnetism, having been president of the North American Academy of Magnetic Therapy, is truly able to wake you up to what is going to happen over the next year, because he really predicts that we will be worried about another form of radiation exposure next year. It'll be gamma radiation coming from the sun because of increasing depletion of the ozone layer, which is, I repeat, very poorly correlated with the carbon burning and the fossil fuel and the use of cars, but is very tightly coordinated with the depletion of the Earth's electromagnetic field. Now, if we look at Mars, Mars was once, without a doubt, a flourishing planet. But it lost, as we one day must, the hot, molten iron core that maintained and maintains our magnetic field. And since when that cools, we can lose that. But this is not happening overnight. So I'm not saying these things are happening overnight. I'm merely pointing out that we are living at times of change. And we can obviously see that because the magnetic field, the whole, is 10 times larger than anything they thought, now that they have the ability to see it and measure it. So it was open to the solar wind, and the breach is allowing 20 times the normal amount of solar particles. That will include not just ultraviolet ray, but things like gamma. And gamma radiation is a major threat that would almost make our concern about Japan pale by comparison. So let's consider the Japanese problem to be a wake-up call for us so that we are better able to deal with future challenges. This is just trying to explain how big the breach is and how much the magnetic shield has become depleted. And then you can learn about the Russian Ministry of Extraordinary Situations, where the weakening magnetosphere is allowing poisonous space clouds to enter our atmosphere, and birds are dropping dead by the 100,000 out of the sky. So why do we need to supplement the naturally occurring magnetism that's going away? Well, when you lose 80, 90, or whatever percent you use, it's clear that the depleted field is going to cause the atoms to be at a lower level of energy. And so these frequencies that we are exposed to, stronger than ever before, override the vital brain function. So if you get excited, you'll see why the PEMF is now being used at places like Yale and Stanford and UCLA to treat depression that was unresistant, that was unresponsive to any other form of antidepressant therapy. So that moves us away from the biochemistry, which is a straitjacket, because the biochemistry isn't doing what we can do with physics. So let me make it clear that when you use a PEMF, you are dramatically changing transmembrane potential. You're bringing the alkaline state of each individual cell up to an optimal level where oxygen levels are effectively being released. And then if they're lucky enough to have your patient or yourself on the beyond chelation improved, that turns thick blood from being like ketchup into nice thin blood like wine that can get to a area in your body that is starving for oxygen or food and be fed as a result of you combining the blood thinning benefits of the beyond chelation improved therapy to get the nutrients to the cell. And then my power drink with the maca, the green, and the beyond fiber, and the bioenergy C, the unique vitamin C delivery system. When you do these things, you will be able to start having the magnificent increase in energy I have seen, because your detoxification takes energy for the cell membrane to be able to have enough positive and minus. It's like if your battery in your car is dead, you're not going to start the car. So what we're telling you is the battery in your cells is mitochondria. In the mitochondria, we can help you tremendously when I give you the right form of the stabilized all-R-lipoic acid. And I have every one of my patients taking carnitine and coenzyme Q. These are essential part of my program to keep these mitochondria, which are the power cell inside of each cell in your body. Heart cells will have at least 200 of these mitochondria if you've been exercising. If you never use your body and you biggest thing you push is the remote control for the television, you won't have 200 of these power plants, and you will not have the what I call infinite health and wellness that you are entitled to if you choose to do my advanced detoxification program. Remember, the mitochondria is the powerhouse, it's the motor, and what you didn't know is that heavy metals like lead and mercury are just absolutely concentrated outside of these mitochondria, which means that no mitochondria is giving you its best, because lead is a toxin to all the enzyme processes, and it takes multiple enzyme steps for this cell to convert the glucose, which comes to the cells in the blood, and the oxygen into the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that gives you the energy for, let's face it, a mother can pick up a car if her child's under the wheel. But this is all the magic of understanding physics and biochemistry. But if we think about it, if I can get toxins out of you better, that makes a real benefit. So here's the net increase in the excretion of lead, arsenic, mercury, nickel, and tin in somebody just using the actual device that is sleeping on this 100-pound pad between the top and bottom mattress overnight, and then comparing the lot of toxic metals using doctors' data in West Chicago, an extremely reliable, reproducible laboratory. We saw these big things. And then if we chose to do more than just have you sleep on the pad, if we gave you something like my power drink and my zeolite, using the ACZ to start with. That's the liquid homeopathic form of zeolite that's indicated for every child, every baby, and you can spray it on the skin to heal things. But then after you've used 2 or 3 bottles of that zeolite, you then switch over to Zeal Gold. And the Zeal Gold, 1 capsule must be opened and the contents put in a couple of ounces of water. Then you can add that to your power drink or take it by itself. But zeolite, to work effectively, has to be hydrated. But look at what happens then when you take something. I don't happen to use a lot of dimethylsuccinic acid, which today your doctor has to prescribe due to new FDA regulations. But if we give somebody, either way you win. Just the pad alone, you're getting big increases, but the increase is 5 times greater on the nickel excretion if you use a decent oral chelating agent, dimethylsuccinic acid. I still primarily use the EDTA, and it's in everything I do. It's a key ingredient in the Beyond Chelation improved formula, the 9 pills that has eliminated fatal heart attacks in all my clients who stay on it twice a day. But we have the ability to put the EDTA into the Beyond Fiber, which is where it is, so that that works even more, because you can't get the toxins out of your body, even with PEMF and my power drink, unless you carry the toxins all the way out in the bowel movement and urine. And that will happen only effectively when we add the additional fiber, which comes from stabilized rice bran and artichoke. And the fiber has in it the things like beta-cytosterol, which is a powerful substance that actually takes the old bile and helps suck it out so that fat-soluble toxins like dioxin and PCB help leave your body. So there's a lot to these programs, but these are pretty impressive numbers. 57% greater increase in tin, 45% greater increase in mercury, and lead clearly went out. So when you use something that is a prescription substance like DMSA, I have nothing against it. However, I have learned that, amazingly enough, the people who do the DMSA, who do not happen to spend the money to have the pad to sleep on, they've just stirred up a hornet's nest, because you're moving all this lead out of your body, and mercury is trying to leave your body. But if you don't have my power drink in your intestine, that mercury that you took out of your left eye will get down through the liver as a result of you having yourself on DMSA, dimethylsuccinic acid, but it will not leave through the rectum unless you have a really slightly heaping teaspoon of the maca, the Beyond Fiber, and the organic green, and the Bioenergy C, and the zeolite as part of your power drink. Now, Dr. Pollack did a fantastic job of really making it clear that this is nothing new about PEMF. PEMF has been around for years. It's just that it has been not widely endorsed by our government, FTC, FDA, even though it has been part of the whole healthcare system in eastern part of Europe for many years, from Czechoslovakia to Russia and Eastern Germany. All of them have many, many studies about using PEMF. So we want to make it clear that there is a lot of research, and he put it in this book, William Pollack, and this book is available online. It's about $36 or something like that, but it has a quick summary of studies on this topic that involve atherosclerosis, brain health, breast, carpal tunnel, bronchitis, edema, endometriosis, fractures that wouldn't heal, infected skin wounds, ischemic heart disease, liver, polyneuritis. The list just goes on and on. So there is no shortage of proven studies. And then Dr. Terry Williams became a speaker at the Energy Conference. This young man is an MS and a chiropractor dealing with, as I said, really Olympic quality champion athletes. And he has shown, using the PEMF, that he's getting things well that in all the other institutions, if you listen to Dr. Radio and you hear them talk about sports injuries and orthopedic problems and orthopedic surgery, you will be shocked at how poor the results often are and how long the disability when you have something like a anterior cruciate ligament in the knee, or you have an entire quadricep tendon come loose, or any of these injuries, they don't do so well. And they have a long, long recovery in a period that you can't work for 3 or 4 months, and there's no guarantees. And look at 25% of Americans have back pain. I have a brand new back in less than 2 minutes, just using an average of 12 minutes of the PEMF device twice a day, even though it leases for $20,000. It sounds like a lot of money. Break it down to decent credit, that's $500 a month. And then you have something that you can treat your horse or your dog or your kids or your mother or your loved one or your mate or your neighbor. And now you can help people who are now really facing long-term disability. Back surgery isn't too neat. It's not what it's cracked up to be. If your shoulder comes apart, they give no guarantees. Across the board, when you see this presentation by Dr. Williams, which I recorded, and you see a patient who'd been told that this young lady, a top athlete in her high school, was going to have to live for a full year in a total cast enveloping her whole body with her left leg elevated in the air for a year. Instead, in 2 weeks, she's back at her sport, fully recovered because of PEMF. And the documentation of fractures that they thought could take months to heal and require surgery, healing, all I can say is it's exciting to share with you. And then I had Jim McBride, who's deeply involved, and you go to PEMF.us, and you can see a lot about how people buy and get access to a pulsed electromagnetic field $20,000 device and how they make arrangements to lease it. And you can also put that same thing, PEMF.us, and then do /info in many of the YouTube videos showing Parkinson's responding and autism responding, and the dramatic Guillain-Barré patient getting out of a wheelchair after 9 years in a short 2 months because she leased the machine, so she had it. So the machine that we're talking about is PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, and it does all these things. Partial oxygen pressure increases, cell membrane potential. I think, if you realize cells do not have any kind of mouth, they do not have a rectum, they do not have anything to allow the in and out of the good stuff and the bad stuff leaving. But when you put them in this field, everything goes in. In fact, some people have to cut down the number of drugs they take because finally the drugs are getting into the cells. It's called bioporation. But there are many things that's doing. The molecules tend to align. The pH gets much more alkaline, so the oxygen becomes much better available. And you get rid of that thickness, so the blood's not thick like tomato ketchup. We've been helping people, obviously, with the omega-3 and the oral chelation that's in the Beyond Chelation Improved. That's why we continue to go year after year with no reported fatal heart attacks or fatal strokes. So we're pretty proud of what our oral product can do. But the world's getting more hostile, and there are more and more challenges. So I'm really excited to bring these additional physics to your attention, to the biochemistry that you already understood, because this idea, the red blood cells no longer being stuck in big ROLU where they cannot efficiently carry oxygen, these are all powerful explanations for why I feel so much better. In my bone mending, in 20 years I couldn't stand straight. My back was in pain. And it's electroporation that's allowing the water to dissolve the toxins and get the medicine and herbs into the cell, which raises the energy of the cell, the ATP, particularly if you're lucky enough to be buying the right kind of coenzyme Q, carnitine, and the all-R-lipoic acid that you can get from Longevity Plus. But the electromagnetic pulse is causing a little tiny microcurrent. And that turns out to be part of cell-cell communication. And if you want to carry that to macrocurrent, then you go to Renua, R-E-N-U-A, medical.com and learn how a Tesla-based high voltage, low amperage, medical grade electromuscle stim device available called NeuroCare from Renew Medical, how it has canceled the need for 100% of a whole group of otherwise gangrenous feet scheduled for amputation due to diabetes, who responded so well to the electricity. So we like electricity. So sometimes, because that device is a little less expensive, it's $5,000 to own or $250 a month to rent. But if we have choices, then sometimes some people will wind up with both, because the size of their problem when they've been badly injured could mean that we'd want both the pulsed electrotherapy and the Tesla-based electric stimulation. But you see, the PEMF, the pulse, goes all the way up to 19,000 Gauss. But it's for less than a millionth of a second, so it doesn't cause the cell to overheat. So how does it all work? Well, I'm convinced, because of this study, that it is treating depression that didn't respond to anything else, because it's turning on new brain cells. Those are brand new stem cells in our brain. And we eliminate that depression when we get our own new brain cells. Fortunately, we make them every day, because remember, a lot of us didn't know that too much alcohol and too many cigarette smoking and aging, etc., was taking away brain cells. There's no doubt that we do many things that let brain cells die, but we do have the ability to replace these brain cells. So it's very important for everybody to know that when you combine my fight program with what we're talking about, miracles can and will happen. Now, this is just the research that ties PEMF to the idea that it's actually helping proliferate human bone marrow mesenchymal stem cells. So this is all in the mainstream of medicine. And this is the 18-year-old boy who at his 18, the school had asked the parents to put him in an institution. They said he's never completed a sentence. He's 18 years of age. He will not make it in this life. Please commit him for life. At that point, the mom hears of a chiropractor who had just leased a PEMF, and she took the young boy over, and Jim McBride was there to train the doctor of chiropractic how to use the $20,000 PEMF that anyone can learn within an hour, how to start it and safely treat themselves. But he was there, and it turned out that he was the one that got eye contact for the first time. And when we treat this young man for 6 weeks, he's standing up giving a talk at the very school that said to his parents 6 weeks before that he needed to be committed for life to an institution. Now, this is the lady that had 9 years in a wheelchair because of a serious paralysis called Guillain-Barré. And here she is with a big smile, showing that she leased the machine just to treat herself. And at the end of 2 months, she is walking on her own power into the church. So this is pretty exciting. And her depression, of course, went away at the same time. And we even see, when you do these things, patients who start now to get in shape with these different things we're talking about, their diabetes can go away, because if you bring back muscles, muscles are the key part of the metabolism of our nutrients. And so people become no longer diabetic, which helped, I repeat, 100% of 89 cases scheduled in Mexico for amputation of gangrenous lower extremities, their feet, were saved by simply using the device we're talking about. So whether you know somebody with backache, headache, musculoskeletal, everybody gets into some pain syndrome. And it's just so sad when you realize that we live in a day and age in which the insurance pays so well. Why not just give you a new knee? Let's give you a new hip while we're there. And across the board, something new in your spine. This is not good medicine, because these things carry risk. Every day we hear of people who have serious adverse outcomes with drugs and surgery. But this is the great news. Here's a bull rider that thought he would never ride again. And here's somebody with a shoulder and the hamstring. It's just unbelievable, because the orthopods, if you go to Dr. Radio, which is Sirius Satellite 114 or XM satellite 119, and you listen at no charge. You do have to have a serious connection to your computer or your iPhone or whatever, but if you listen, it's in my car radio, you'll see how many people have injuries, and that injury is preventing them from reaching their maximum intended useful lifespan because they're not able to be active. These are people who are active. Swim coach and wide receiver, pitcher, these people you'd be amazed, these groin injuries, rib injuries, we do very poorly when we inject cortisone. It isn't a cortisone deficiency that needs to be injected. And it's not a need for an anti-inflammatory. They'll use them because they don't know what else to do. So you feel that you've been to the doctor and you at least had some attention, but you're not getting it healed any faster unless you deal with the underlying problem, stimulate the body's innate ability to heal itself, and cancers get better with this, far better with the same therapy they were doing before. Everything works better. And so if we look at this, it's really clear that a horse will give you the horse laugh. And my horse is getting first and seconds, jumping 6 foot, this warm blood at the really, what we call the advanced competitive sport jumping. And this is really Grand Prix show jumping, and the horses do extremely well. And if we look at with any kind of thermograph, if you have something that hurts on your body, yeah, all of us have something. Or we look at a woman's breast, we see a hot area. And that hot area is inflammation. Now we have so much good news about curcumin in my basic fight program that I want to make it clear to you that if the reason you tuned in today was because you were concerned that because of the air quality starting to carry, obviously, much higher levels of radiation into our whole country, that your cancer was your main interest, please repeat after me. You're going to go to my website and you're going to read 18 pages that summarizes the 8 hours of webinars that I have done on my FIGHT program, which covers food supplements and which foods you need to avoid. My infection program, which covers the infections, whether you think you have Lyme, which you may have, or valley fever, or maybe you have what we call cytomegalic virus that Harvard says is in 90% of people, and it's helping give us hypertension and vascular disease, or mycoplasma, which is epidemic, or chlamydia in our sexually active age, or something from our mouth, because our mouth is actually found contributing organisms to the plaque on our arteries, so that there's a reason that I have FIGHT, food, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin. And it's because I have to help you know how to do something in every area. So I get you off gluten, get you off dairy. And if there was the one thing I can absolutely state, it is Curing the Incurable. It's a book by Tom Levy. And it's all about how vitamin C will treat almost every known form of poisoning. Since everybody listening to me is toxic, all of you are poisoned, so that if I want to have you survive better, let's just say that the level of radiation that we expect coming from Japan suddenly goes up 1,000 times higher. Now it's going to be a lot different, because instead of having no deaths as we had at 3 Mile Island, and maybe 4,000 deaths that we had at Chernobyl, let's just say that all of them coalesce into something like an atomic bomb, and it goes up, and then it becomes really significant. But remember, the program that we developed, the Kobayashi program, which is just a simple thing of going to bed earlier, lowering the stress, simplifying the diet, spending enough hours in a far infrared sauna to do some good, doing immune support. I mean, nothing that I am advocating is a drug or something that you wouldn't do for yourself anyhow if you'd read my FIGHT program. But if I take the inflammation away from your knee so your knee is painless so that you can walk around the block with your dog, I've added years to your life. So across the board, I'm teaching you about this little device. I have the one with the big wheels so I can easily take it over to wherever my horse is. They have them with little wheels for the clinic, and they have them for somebody that doesn't need wheels at all because they're wealthy enough to just need this in one room of their office or one room of their home. The guts are the same. There is no difference in the treatment effect. They are identical, but they all weigh pretty much, the active part's probably 30 pounds, and with the case you're talking about another 10 pounds. So there's a lot of weight, but there's a change to your life. Now, Renua Medical is where you can call and learn all about how to use a Tesla-based device that looks very simple. And Greg Westphal is a tremendous teacher and put in several hours of training that will come up in the next couple of weeks as we start to download all this training, so you too will know how to save somebody's arm that's twice the normal size because they had a useless axillary lymph node dissection from a doctor who had his head buried in the sand and still believed that cancer can be solved by cutting it out. You can't cut out cancer. It's a systemic disease. You can't cut it out unless you cut out your whole body. So this idea that you cure it by is really bad. Cutting, burning, stabbing, it's just not the answer. But the blood test for cancer will help keep you alive. Now, people don't like to be told to fail a test and they have some cancer, but in a sense it's good news because it means that I caught you before you had a lump or bump. There's a 7-year period between lump and bump. So let's just say we got really hit with some really bad stuff coming from Japan. So yeah, okay, we will definitely see an increase in the number of cases of cancer. But all of you listening to this program can see how to bring that back down to having essentially no effect, because we have to teach you how to really understand my fight program. And fortunately for you, a professional writer took 100 hours of his time and went through all of these webinars I've done and extracted it into an organized document that anyone can follow, and you will be very, very amazed. This is the unit that sells for $5,000, rents for $250 to $350 a month, depending on how long it is, called NeuroCare. This is the unit that is doing miraculous things using painless, high voltage, low amperage. Now that's big, big words. All the other muscle stimulator units on the market have, unfortunately, high amperage and high voltage, and they hurt. The net result is nobody can do with any of the other electrostimulants. Nobody is canceling amputations, I assure you. And nobody's getting the success that we see with the knees and the hips and the back and the rest of it. So it's FDA registered. It's a very big story. We stopped the incontinence women so they don't have to go 60 times a day at home urinating. And we've been able to save the extremities, and amazingly enough, take a paralyzed patient with a completely flaccid leg, and by putting the electrodes on and stimulating it with this little box, which has only the right kind of current, we've been able to put 10 inches of actual muscle back on a leg in a paralyzed patient, so they still have the metabolism, which takes the diabetes away and extends their lifespan, while we keep them in shape as we learn other tricks that can help bring the connection from the leg back to the brain, and the patient's walking on their own again. So these are the kind of feet that we were able to save. This is the report from the wonderful Lyme newspaper called Public Health Alert that mentions that there's 2 forms of F. The second F is your attitude, your focus. In other words, Bruce Lipton wrote Biology of Belief, and his wonderful book, Spontaneous Evolution, will bring hope to you, even though at times it looks like things could be a little bleak with what's going on. And all of you health professionals need to know that you have free access to protocols that are utilized by over 3,000 health professionals around the world by simply going to my website, Gordon Research, and scroll down and join FACT, and you'll know how your colleagues treat cancer and hypertension, insomnia, and Lyme disease. And those of you who are in the public, join Fight for Your Health. Linda Hemming, as a practical nurse and an undercover investigator, actually helps people free of charge understand how to deal with the masses of information that she handles and puts it in the lay language so the public can be helped. My website's pretty simple. We have Benny Hinn, who felt when he came to me 14, 15 years ago with his heart that he was going to have to live on Coumadin for years. I have nobody on Coumadin. We take everybody off these useless drugs, and then you'll understand zeolite really is from volcanic activity, and it is the good Lord's answer to our toxic planet. Because zeolite, in the 2 forms we have it, ACZ, the nano form, which is for the homeopathic that you can give to any baby the minute it's born, or to your dog, or to your cat. Just add it to the water, spray it on things that don't heal in your body, but we then have it 100 times stronger in one capsule of Zeogold. So once you've done and opened the body's detox pathways using the homeopathic zeolite, then you can move on to the Zeogold and do very advanced detoxification. So with that, I see that we have a question. What do I think of the unipolar magnetic patches maybe working together with the earthing technology of Ober? How would it work together? This is a question that is sent to me. My guess is the increased number of electrons from the earthing products may combine with the increased electron charge from the magnetic mattress to give an increased overall total negative charge. Perhaps it is the overall charge that is important for the electron transport chain and the ATP generation. This is a very good technical question. Now, Dr. Sinatra, I just saw this weekend because we were both sharing our experience with our horses, and I was telling him just a little bit about how to learn about PEMF, but he helped write the book on the earthing. And this concept, to put it in simplest form, is, walk through the wet grass and you're barefoot, and get back to the fact that we're all with these thick shoes and we're living we have gotten so separated from the earth. And if you're going to start your car, you can have a jumper cable, but if you don't get the jumper cable grounded to part of your car, you won't jump the car and it won't start. So it's really an important thing. And so they are both involving physics, and this wonderful guess that it's the increased number of electrons from earthing products with the increased electron charge from the magnetic mattress. Dr. Bonnley had a reservation or two about the use of earthing in highly urbanized area, like if you're living in a 20-story building, hotel, month after month, and you're not in touch with the earth. He says it's a different kind, a different need, a different application of the earthing than for those of us in the rural. And I didn't have a chance to get that further refined, but I will be spending more time with Dr. Bonnley, and we'll get a chance to answer that question even better. I will see if there's any other questions at this time that I can handle.
Dr. Gordon, we do have one more question. We have someone that wants to know what you think about the MRS 2000 PEMF mats.
There are so many different applications of pulsed electromagnetic field. There's the OnDemand, which I have a great deal of respect for. There's the Beamer, which I really like. There's all kinds of PEMF mats, and all of them are useful. My problem was that my need was great, and like most of us, I want instantaneous gratification. And so I wind up endorsing every kind of PEMF unit out there. Just hopefully it's being used by somebody who's using it preventively, because at age 76 with a back that was so bad that I virtually could not bend over and touch toes, and I was really in pain the more I tried to stand straight. I needed results now. So the exciting device that we are discussing here, that I've shown you pictures of, goes to 19,000 Gauss, but only for essentially a millionth of a second. But it is clearly, I have seen it case after case, it is so boringly predictable that somebody who's been suffering with a bad shoulder and a bad knee and a bad back and a bad this, that they're going to see a result. That I just want everybody to know that anything that you can have, and if you have a PEMF pad from any company, there will be differences between the companies. And at this moment on my body, the Beamer was the one that actually I saw real benefit from, and one of my doctor friends love the OnDemand because it's working more frequency specific, in which they try to have the OnDemand magnetic field frequency adjusted to that of the patient, and many doctors are having great success with it.
Dr. Gordon, we do have another question.
Okay.
Is Zeo Gold enough to remove the metals being released for sleeping on the magnetic pads?
That's a wonderful, very brilliant question. The Zeo Gold would do that, but if my experience is this, even when I use the drug DMSA, which is a drug which I have confidence in, it's very useful. When I saw people who were not using it with my power drink, they weren't getting all the protection they needed. And so coming back to Zeo Gold, I prefer Zeo Gold over DMSA because too many patients in a Canadian research project that I got invited to consult on were getting side effects, significant ones, because they were moving the trace metals around. But hear me out carefully. If I'm moving your bad mercury from your left eye or your left kidney, it's going to be picked up by the chelating agent, in this case DMSA or Zeo Gold, and it's going to get carried to a certain place in your body. Now, when it's DMSA, that place is the liver. The liver will dump it into the intestine, and if you're not lucky enough to really believe in Dr. Gordon's power drink and take every single day without exception the vitamin C, the maca, the green, and the Beyond Fiber, which is the most unique fiber product on the market, nothing touches it. The beta-cytosterol in there is working in your body like a bile acid sequestrant called cholestyramine. Many of the toxins in our body are fat dependent and are fat soluble and need to be picked up by those 4 ingredients when you consume my power drink. So even though Zeo Gold has a big advantage over all of the other processes because it has a tiny opening that fits perfectly and has like a cave, a tiny little slot that the lead or the mercury can hide in. And basically, once it's there, it's not going to get released again, because what I'm so upset about is with DMSA, if we dump it into your intestine, it goes down 2 feet, and then it gets confused, and the body thinks it's food, and it picks up the mercury you just dumped down there and brings it back into your body. So you took it from your left kidney or your left eye to the right eye. It wasn't a good process. So across the board, Zeo Gold is the best thing I have been able to come up with, but as good as it is, you still need to concept that the toxins we are all talking about have been covered in great detail on my website. Just go to 10 Americans, put in the word TEN Americans, and do that on Google, and you will see what I'm talking about in the way of neurotoxins, endocrine disruptors, and carcinogens. So what I'm saying is that the toxic load we all have has organics and inorganics, and some of the organics are fat soluble and some are water soluble. So this becomes a rat race, so that I'm not going to be able to give you the assertion that Zeo Gold is the end all and be all, even though it has in it some glutathione and the all-R stabilized form of lipoic acid, which is a key part of the product, and the humic acid, which has been shown to make zeolite work far better. So it's a pretty comprehensive formula, and it has some of our unique vitamin C delivery system called Bioenergy C. So it's a very comprehensive capsule that you open, put in water, and let it solubilize. It has to hydrate. That takes almost 2 minutes. And then you can dump an ounce or 2 of that water in any water and put it into my power drink, which I put in a 12-ounce cup I get from Price Costco, and I take that 12-ounce cup and I use it twice a day, and I start out with a slightly heaping teaspoon of the maca, the green, the Bioenergy C, and the Beyond Fiber, and then I add my Zeo Gold. So now I have a really total formula. But always understand that some things in some people are difficult to get out. For a simple example, due to genetics, we find some people take 160 days to get rid of the same amount of mercury that you eat when you have 1 fish meal, and other people got rid of it in 40 days. So the trick is, how do we keep these things leaving our body? How much time have you got to be in a far infrared sauna, which I love? Because that sweating is really neat. And if you really could sweat and then jump into your tub and have in it my Beyond Clean, the Beyond Clean is EDTA. And the EDTA is avidly going to pull the metals out of the skin because the skin is a major organ of excretion for mercury and other toxins that don't go out any other way. The kidney can only handle so much. So there's a great deal to this, but thank you for a great question because we can't all afford to do everything. The ZO Gold 1, 2, or 3, I'd have many people now building up to 3 a day, but I started slow because once out of 100 doctors, one doctor said, gee, he got 5 or 6 bowel movements from one capsule of ZO Gold. Obviously, he needed the help. And so I don't like people being inconvenienced, and that's the reason I often prefer to start with the homeopathic ACZ, which is gentler, and start out with one spray morning and night for children or adults. But with adults, they go up to 10 or 15 sprays 4 times a day, go through 3 or 4 bottles, and that way I've really covered the zeolite from all aspects, starting with a homeopathic, nano-sized, and then moving into the ZO Gold, taking 1 a day for, say, a month, and then 2 a day for the next month, then working to 3 a day, and probably staying at 3 a day for a few years, because it takes, as you will soon learn, 7 years half-life to start moving the lead out of our bone, and we are all born with an average of 1,000 times too much lead. Thank you for a great question. Again, thank all of you for attending. We'll be back next week trying to make sense out of the amazing time that we have found ourselves on Earth. Thank you again for your confidence in Dr. Gordon and in Join Fact, and stay in touch with Longevity Plus. The staff will try to help you because the events are unfolding rapidly. So do not hesitate to call Longevity Plus 1-800-580-PLUS and say, I didn't get what Dr. Gordon said. Please help. They will try to make it understandable.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. We encourage you to browse Dr. Gordon's website, which is www.gordonresearch.com. The products that Dr. Gordon has formulated are available through Longevity Plus. Please visit our website at www.longevityplus.com or call 800-580-7587 to place your order. We value all of you and thank you for joining us today.